Now, Derek is getting a history lesson this morning in Dublin City.
He's finding out what life was like in the past for residents of Henrietta Street.
How are you getting on, Derek?
Thank you very much, Tim. Welcome down here to 14 Henrietta Street, one of the most iconic and historic buildings, not only here in Dublin's north side inner city, but right around the country. Tim Carey is with us. Any relation to Jim Carey?
Unfortunately not, no.
Anyway, Tim, first up, tell us about this beautiful building here itself. When was it built?
This was built in the 1740s. We're on Dublin north side. It was built by Luke Gardner. People may be familiar with him. He would have been the biggest property developer in Ireland in Dublin in the 18th century on the north side. So he would have built O'Connell Street, Parnell Square, Mountjoy Square. This was one of the flagship pieces for him. This is one of the most desirable locations to live in, Henrietta Street. The first person who lived in the house was a man called Lord Molesworth. Again, very wealthy. This was a street that had, bishops, vice-chancellors of Ireland. This was really a place apart. And actually, when I came up this morning, you get to the end of the road and you look up, and it's like you're walking through a portal into the past. You know, it's like walking into a film set. You kind of knock on it.
So it's very gentrified, right?
Very gentrified, and one of the most important streetscapes in Ireland and indeed in Europe. So it started off as very wealthy. You know, this was the top brass would have lived here. After the Act of Union
in 1801,
in 1801, very good. The nobility and the wealthy people of Dublin started leaving the capital. It was no longer a capital. Place went into decline. This started being taken over by kind of barristers and lawyers. King's Inns is at the end of the road. And then in the later part of the 19th century, it was bought by a man called Thomas Vance. And he put an ad in the paper saying, I'm turning what was this beautiful house and one of the most important residences into tenements and 20 flats, and it became one of, the typical Dublin tenements. And it's hard to imagine, like Lord Molesworth lived here with his wife, 2 children, small number of staff. In 1911, in the census, there were 100 people living in this building. There was 850 people living on this street. I mean, the volume, the noise, the activity, the life is absolutely incredible. And a lot of people, I think, aren't aware that the tenements in Ireland, in Dublin, really didn't cease to exist until the 1970s. And actually, the last person to live in a tenement here left in the 1970s.
Bring it up then to 2004. Came into the hands of Dublin City Council, and you've done great work then, the restoration project.
Yeah, so the Heritage Office of Dublin City Council took it over, took an interest in this whole area and saw that the uniqueness of it. And from 2008 until 2018, 10-year restoration project here. So it wasn't sort of, let's just make it look like, the Molesworths were still living here and that it was all amazing. They worked with what they had. It was in a very bad condition, so there had to be a lot of replacement, but they kept absolutely whatever they could. And if you go up the stairs here, you can see the sort of, new timber inserted, but very carefully inserted. So when you come in here, it's a very authentic experience. And when you come here, you're not looking at sort of, China teacups and,
it's living history.
It's living history, and it's about the people that lived here. And Dublin City Council's Culture Company, it's very much about people and storytelling. So everything we do really relates to, providing easy access to culture, easy access to heritage, easy access to history, and telling stories. And that's what you get when you come here.
All right, Tim, we'll come back to you in a little bit later on, because we're going to walk and talk here through the house here itself. And we're joined now by one of the local guides, Ty. Ty, tell us about the room we're in here at the moment.
So this room that we're in now, this was the dining room in the 18th century. You'll see on the walls these portraits. These are the first residents of this house, Richard Lord Viscount Molesworth and his wife, Lady Mary Jenny Usher.
I mean, there's a lot of grandeur here, isn't there?
Yeah. So you'll see the stucco work is original, and this is really beautifully restored.
These floorboards, are they original?
Yes, these are original floorboards, actually imported into Dublin from Eastern Europe in the 18th century.
Now, tell us about the room we've landed in here.
So this room, we believe, would have been a bedroom in the 18th century, and so we furnished it with a very beautiful 18th century bed. But this bed didn't originally belong to the house. It's a very special bed belonging to a man called Bartholomew Moss, and he might not be a familiar name to viewers, but he was the founder of the Rotunda Hospital, so a very important man in Irish history.
One of the oldest hospitals in the world.
Yes, it was the first purpose-built maternity hospital, as far as we know, in the world, yeah.
The bed here, the mattress came up to here, I believe.
Yeah, there would have been several mattresses, usually a straw mattress with several feather mattresses on top, meaning that you would have actually needed steps to get into the bed generally, and then you would have had lots of bolster pillows behind you. You would have slept semi-upright.
Very, very cosy.
Yeah.
And now we're coming into a complete juxtaposition because this is the tenement side of the house.
Yeah, so the house became a tenement in 1877, and the first thing you'll probably notice out here is the walls. These colours on the walls, they are original, and they're very iconic of the tenement in Dublin. This blue is called Reckitt's Blue. It's made by the paint company Reckitt's, and it was chosen because it contains a distemper. So the idea was that this disinfectant would be, taking in the germs from people coughing and sneezing. Obviously, it didn't really work. The red, though, that you see here, this is red rattle, and this contains rust or iron oxide. The idea being that it was antifungal, and so would prevent the damp from rising. But many residents of tenements, what they remember is using this red rattle for another reason, because young women, when they were going out dancing, oftentimes they would lick their finger and then rub the red rattle, and you had free rouge and free lipstick.
Free makeup, there you go.
So this hallway today, we can't really recreate as it would have been in the tenement period, because it would have been in complete darkness. And that meant that for many people living in this house, especially children, coming up this staircase here was quite a dangerous affair, very scary. So Paddy Shields, who actually lived on the very top floor of this house, he remembers what he'd do when he came into this house. He'd shout up to his mum on the top floor, he'd ask for a light, and then she would take a piece of newspaper, light the corner of it, allow it to float down the centre of the stairs, and then he'd run up as quick as possible.
Absolutely incredible. Where can we find out more online, the website?
So 14henriettastreet.ie is the name of the
to Tim and
website.
Tig, all the staff down here, we've really enjoyed our tour. I hope you have it home as well. But for now, back to you in studio. Let's get a little bit of rouge off the ball, will we? We won't touch the ball.
Touch that.
Don't
No,
do
Dare,
that.
don't touch that.
Please don't do that.
Don't do that. Historic building.
I'm just about to say, we don't have the money to
floorboards.
cover that, babe. We really don't.